see the numbers changing too much. So I'll just start by introducing myself. Good evening. My name is Jason Ryman. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Educational Services. I want to welcome you to our Parent Information Night for Castro Valley Virtual Academy. We're very happy that you're taking time this evening to learn more about this option. This is an option that's we're discussing, especially for our elementary and middle school students. Of course, if you're a parent of a high school student, you know that through the course selection process, you've already had the discussions and had an opportunity to go through a parent information night. But we want to provide further information also to our elementary and middle school families as well. Before we begin, I want to make a few introductions. We're very fortunate to have with us Superintendent Parveen Ahmadi, who is here to join us and support us as she always does with important programs. We also have coordinating and setting up all of the technical work that we're doing tonight, Araceli Cortez, who is the Executive Assistant for Educational Services. We also have Ms. Vivian Parator, our Director of Secondary Education, Nia Rashichi, our Director of Elementary Education, and Patrick Hansen-Schmidt, our Principal Extraordinaire at Independent Elementary, who will be our Lead Administrator for Castro Valley Virtual Academy for Elementary. Just as one nuts and bolts item, if you are looking for interpretation services, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a globe that says interpretation. If you click that globe, you can click whether you would like interpretation in Spanish or Chinese and Cantonese. We appreciate Jane and Marcy being here and helping us with those items. So if we could just bring up the slides, Araceli. And so as I mentioned before, we really appreciate you being here tonight. Is it possible to get that translated back into? Awesome, thank you.
Hold on 1 second, this is the wrong slide.
Wrong slide, yeah. So just as we're getting the slides up, I'll just talk through the purpose of tonight's meeting. We're really meeting tonight, again, to share with you the virtual option. Next year in the fall, we anticipate being back in full in-person instruction at all grade levels, of course, with all necessary and applicable safety precautions that should be in place. We're providing to you the best information that we have currently. However, we do know that there's a possibility that new guidance, new regulations and new laws could be passed between now and then. So the information that we'll be providing to you tonight, if you could go to the next slide, please, will really be focused on the best information that we have today. And so tonight we'll be reviewing the programs at the elementary level and the middle school level. We'll also be giving you some information regarding the high school level, but again, if you are a high school student and you will have already received that information through your high school, through your choice sheet, and there's no need to take any further steps at this point. We'll also be describing the curriculum that's being used at each of the grade levels, discussing the next steps that you'll need to take if you're interested in continuing. And there will be a survey that's going to be distributed this evening that you should be receiving. If you can return that survey to us no later than May 28th, that is the latest date by which we can make those changes, because of course we need those surveys in order to make the adjustments and hire the appropriate number of teachers and staffing to make sure to support your students if you do decide to participate in CVVA. And as I mentioned before, everything we share tonight, of course, is based on the best information that we have currently. However, we know that from the past leading up till now, those things can change. And if they do, of course, we will adjust the program to meet all state guidance and legal requirements. So I will pass off the baton to Nia, who is going to tell you more about Nia and Patrick, who will tell you more about the elementary program. It's
Thank you,
Rashiki.
Thank you, Dr. Ryman. And if we can go to the next slide. And the next slide. So in the elementary program, we're really aiming for three things for the 21-22 school year. First, to really provide a quality virtual option that is comparable to our main in-person program. It's number one. Two, we obviously want to create a sense of belonging and welcoming so that we're really focused on building those relationships at CVVA. And then last, to leverage all of those new skills and approaches and tools that our teachers have really learned and finely tuned over the last year and a half. We want to include those in our virtual academy. Next slide. Some of the changes that we want to, some of the shifts or key changes that we want to make sure, or differences that we want to make sure are in the 21-22 virtual program for elementary. So for CVVA, CVVA will be the home school. For those parents that have students in the CVVPE program this school year, you're used to having your students enrolled in CVVPE and then still having a connection to one of the 9 elementary schools as the home school. For the 21-22 school year, CVVA will be the home school for elementary students that enroll. And we're really talking about for those families that want to still have some health and safety concerns regarding the pandemic, that's who this virtual program would be for the students that want to be enrolled in that program. So CVVA will be the home school. We will also have a full school day. And that's comparable to the in-person full school day schedule. And then last but not least, we will have specialists teaching in our specialist program. So PE, music, our RTI specialists, our science, those will be also part of the CVVA program. So next slide. And so then we thought it would be important to kind of talk about what the schedule will look like. And so Mr. Principal Hanson-Smith is going to tell you a little bit about the schedules and the curriculum. Pat?
Nice, thank you, Nia. You can go to the next slide. So when we're talking about what the potential schedule can look like, I'm going to be talking about instructional blocks, or I'm going to mention instructional blocks quite a bit. And an instructional block, within it, we have that direct instruction where the teacher's providing the skills or teaching the exact skills and standards to the students, followed by small groups and independent work. And so in that block, we have this rotation of these different tasks. Independent work is that non-screen time. It's when the students are completing those worksheets, reading the novels. Whereas the small groups and the direct instruction, the student will be interacting with the teacher on the computer screen. So next slide. Nice. Thank you. So this is an example of what a schedule could look like next year. So as Mr. Chichi said, we're trying to mirror what the in-person classroom looks like as much as possible. So you can see this schedule looks a lot like what the in-person students will have for their schedule. As always, we're starting with that morning meeting with the SAL and anti-bias curriculum. And then you can see within the day, we have our English language arts block, our math block, our science and history block, and then an opportunity for additional intervention, acceleration, or extracurriculars at the end of the day. Recesses, lunches are built into the schedule to allow for those breaks, not only for the students, but for the teachers as well. And you can see within all of those blocks, we've got that direct instruction, the small groups, and the independent work. The idea here is that the elementary students will have support throughout their instructional minutes. So while during that independent work, they may not be interacting with the teacher and the screen, the Zoom meeting is still open so that the teacher could call the student back in to the meeting, or the student could ask a question if necessary. And then on the next slide, you'll see an example of what the weekly schedule could look like. So you can see the same basic format that we talked about with the daily schedule, but then you also see PE plugged in throughout the week, just like the in-person students will have. And you can see that on Friday, we still have that early dismissal, just like the main option students will have. But this gives you an idea of what the schedule could look like. This is an example of what a 1st through 3rd grade students' instructional minutes could, or how they could be met. If you go to the next slide. So what curriculum are we going to be using? This year in the CVVPE, we relied heavily on Pathblazer. Next year, we will not have Pathblazer for the students. We're going to use the district adopted curriculum, just like the students in person will be using. And we'll have additional online platforms that we can use as supplemental. So your Zern, your IXL, the other systems that the in-person students will have as well. As we said, PE, lab science, intervention, and so forth will be provided by specialists, whereas this year they were provided by the classroom teacher. And for all of our assessments, we're going to use the same ones that the students in person will be using as well. Another key difference is that IEP services, so your RSP, your SLP, those will be provided by the CVVA service providers, not through the other elementary school service providers. And those services will be provided in the same way that they were this year, with the teacher potentially pushing into the classroom or pulling the student into a breakout room or whatever else is written in the IEP. And if you go to the next slide. So as Ms. Rachichi said, the CVVA will be the student's own homeschool. So that means that we will have our own parent organization. We'll have our own extracurricular groups, and we'll have our own additional activities such as the yearbook, 5th grade promotion, back to school night. Everything will be CVVA elementary specific. And I think, next slide. I think it is, and so this is more for any teachers that are listening. The preparation periods are going to be exactly the same as how the main option, the in-person teachers have the preparation periods met through the PE, the early dismissal, science for 4th and 5th grade. And our staff meeting will have a vote at the beginning of the year about whether or not, or which collaboration schedule will be on for the staff meeting. So at this point, I believe I'm going to pass it off to Ms. Vivian Parator, who's going to talk about middle school CVVA.
Thank you very much. Next slide, please. The secondary program, 6 through 8 and 9 through 12 are going to be 2 separate programs. So I'm going to talk about the 6th through 8th grade program first. This year, 6th through 8th graders were attached to their middle school. And next year, this coming up year, they will not be. They will be in CVVA. That will be their home school. They will have a 6-period day, the same as they would in a regular secondary school. And they will have 50-minute periods. But as you can see, they're blocked out. And that is because each period will contain some synchronous, some asynchronous. It's not a set time for each period in terms of how much of it is synchronous and how much of it is independent work time, because it may vary from day to day. So for example, one day there might be a lot of synchronous instruction from the teacher because they've noticed that the students were really having trouble with some of the curriculum. And on other days, there will be a lot more independent work time during that time, but there will always be a check-in with every teacher every period. The curriculum we will be using will be Edgenuity, which is the same as we use for the 9-12 program. It's the other half of Pathblazer. Pathblazer this year was part of the Edgenuity suite, but it is very different for secondary schools. Next slide, please. Our goals are very similar to the goals of the elementary program. We want to provide a virtual option for families, and we want to create a sense of connection. And we want to adopt a very flexible mindset to embrace creative ways to meet students' needs at a distance. So Edgenuity provides the curriculum and the students log on every day. However, they will be seeing their teachers every day. And there's an opportunity at the end of the day, every day, to have our ELD for our English language learners, any resource help that they will need, and enrichment activities. Could I have the next slide, please? So our secondary 9 through 12 program is very different from the K-8 program. K-8 program is the 6-8 is very similar to our K-5 program. But our secondary program is really different. As Dr. Reiben said, if you are a secondary student, secondary family, you have already signed up for next year's program through your choice sheet that you received from your middle school if you were an 8th grader, or your Castro Valley High School, or CVVA if you are a high school student 10 through 12. Next slide, please. So the CVVA schedule is very, very different. And the following slide is just a sample schedule, because CVVA 9 through 12 is very flexible to meet the needs of very different needs of our students. It's an example of the types of activities that students might engage in throughout the school day and the week. But the week will vary tremendously depending on whether the student is concurrently enrolled in a junior college, or if they have a job, or if they're in ROP, or if they have CTE classes. So there are they might be a hybrid student, which means they have a couple of classes at Castro Valley High School and 4 classes at CVVA, or that might be the other way around. So the high school course selection for classes and enrollments has been done. I want to assure anybody who has a high school student that you don't need to check. It's already with the counselors. They have already started to schedule. The master schedule is underway, and your student is in the class, is being put in the classes which you have chosen already, and the program which you have chosen, whether it's Castro Valley High School or Castro Valley Virtual Academy, or a combination of both. Next slide, please. So this is a sample schedule this is a student schedule. So this is what the student would do. This is how they could complete their online classes. Again, the curriculum is Edgenuity. It is A to G, and it does provide all different classes that are available in high school. So this shows that a student might also be taking a community college class. They might be doing ROP, for example, as well. And they do go to Redwood, actual campus, physically, 1 to 3 times a week, depending on how much extra help they need with their Edgenuity classes. So workshop time is time when students actually go to Redwood and meet physically with their teachers. Next slide, please. Is that the last slide? No. Okay, thank you. So Castro Valley Virtual Academy is not for everybody. The 9 through 12 program is really for students who have health issues and have to remain at home, or who only want their students to participate in a remote learning, or who are really, really suited to independent learning. Again, the curriculum is Edgenuity, and this interested families have already applied. So there is no option at this point to reapply. If you could please go to the next slide. So CVVA teachers monitor student progress in all of their courses. They get the students get regular feedback, and they get one-on-one support during personal workshops. And the teachers also respond to student and family emails, provide feedback to the students, and assist them to prepare for the assessments that are in Edgenuity. Next slide, please. I'd like to turn this back over to Ms. Rashichi.
So our next steps overall, and then I'll hand it off to Dr. Reiman. Our next steps is we wanted to make sure that we gave this information to our families. You'll notice that we have recorded this session. And so we're going to send out this session for anybody that wasn't able to come tonight. We'll send this recorded session with an interest/choice survey out to all of our K-8 families, so that they can make an informed decision about whether or not they want to be in a virtual program next year. And we can continue to say we want the majority of our students back in person because we're excited about being in person for the 21-22 school year. But we do know that there are some parents, a limited number of parents, that still do want to have some safety or health concerns. And so we want to make sure that we have a quality, viable option to offer to them. So based on those survey results, once we get them back from our families, we will be able to do the tremendous amount of hiring, staffing process that we have to go through. That takes a lot of time, and we want to make sure that we hire that quality staff that we always have in Castro Valley. And last but not least, throughout the summer, we will communicate with all of our families because, as Dr. Ryman said at the beginning of the meeting, we are still waiting for some state guidance and legislation to really take hold, and we won't know all of that information until mid-June, end of June. We'll just have to see what the timing of the state, where they get that information out to not only Castro Valley, but to all school districts. So we can continue to plan accordingly and get you the most current information as soon as we possibly can. So I will hand it off back to Dr. Ryman, and we'll go from there.
Awesome, thank you. And honestly, can we go to the next slide, please? And so I already see some questions coming into chat, but what we'd like to do is take some time to respond to any questions that you have. And I'll be monitoring chat and sharing with the panelists and all of you some of the questions. To start off with, our first question is, who will be principal for CVVA Middle School? Ms. Parator?
Yes, sorry, it took me a second to unmute. The principal of CVVA 9 through 12 high school will also be the principal of the middle school.
Thank you. And the next question is from Bill Tiroli. His question is, how many students per class are expected?
At the middle and high school level, we are looking at a class size of a normal class size for middle and high school, which is, I believe, 32 students. And at elementary, I believe we are looking at 25 students.
The next question is the name of the principal for the middle and high school level. Well, we're very excited. We've recently, the board recently appointed a new principal for Castro Valley Virtual Academy and Redwood High School, Kenneth Kahn, and he's joining us via San Ramon Valley Unified School District. And the next question is, how much teacher instruction will the lower school students, and I'm assuming we mean lower grade students, receive daily? 30 minutes, or will it be at least 3 to 4 hours? And I know we covered that early, but Ms. Rashichi and Mr. Hansen-Schmidt, for grade 5, would you mind responding?
I think it might be helpful to, if Adesali, could you go back to the schedule? I think it might be helpful to just show that schedule again at the elementary level. And then Mr. Hansen-Smith, do you want to talk about the instructional minutes?
Sure. So, yeah, this will work. So right now for 5th grade, the instructional minutes are, I believe, 320 for 4th and 5th grade. And so this schedule is based off of that, plus the other instructional minutes requirements we have within the district and the state. So you can see that within those blocks, you have that direct instruction and that small group instruction, which will all be the live virtual interaction. So it'll be much more than 30 minutes a day. And even when the students are working independently, they're still going to have access to that teacher just like they would in the classroom.
And then I just wanted to clarify, I know Mrs. Paratar was saying that it's 25 to 1 at the K3 level, and then at 4th and 5th grade, where it's 32 to 1. So just to make sure that I'll say that one more time. For TK3, it's 25 to 1 as far as student-to-teacher ratio, and at 4th and 5th grade, it's 32 to 1.
Okay, the next question has to do with field trips. Will elementary level have in-person field trips, or will they have virtual field trips?
Yeah, so what we know right now is that teachers are planning for the beginning of the year to still do virtual field trips just as a safety precaution. We'll know more as the state releases more information and guidelines and legislation. And I know our teachers are really anxious to plan some in-person field trips, but we also want to make sure that we're erring on the side of safety. That is our first priority.
And I will say that we don't anticipate having field trips through CVVA. So unfortunately, we know there won't be any in-person field trips, definitely. We also don't have any plans currently for virtual field trips, but that's not out of the question in terms of some sort of virtual experience. Okay, so next question, how much live time will kindergartners get daily?
Yeah, so that's the answer to that is going to be really similar to the 5th grade answer, but for kindergarten, the instructional minutes are 180 minutes per day. So the schedule will look very similar to this, just reduced to the 180 rather than the 320.
Thank you, Mr. Hansen-Schmidt. Next question is coming from Preston Young. Will the main option be full day in fall? Yes, we do anticipate a full day of instruction for the main option in fall and for all school days is what we're anticipating. What to know about the options for both programs? I'm unsure of what this second part of the question is asking, but perhaps it's asking what schedules will be offered and what the differences are between the programs. There's lots of similarity in terms of the number of instructional minutes and the amount of time that's spent with instruction. The primary difference is that in-person school will be in person every day and students will have that experience, and that the virtual program will be online. Of course, the online program has all the limitations that come along with being virtual. However, lots of planning went into it. Our next question is from Jamie Yee. After a child is vaccinated, which Pfizer announced will be available for ages 2 to 11 in September 2021? Can CVVPE students then enter the regular full-time in-person school program? Oh, so students can enter the regular in-school program at the beginning of the year with or without the vaccine. However, for the CVVA option, that is an option that is being recommended for enrollment for the full year. Because we cannot afford to hold spaces in both programs simultaneously, we cannot guarantee that a student would be able to transfer back to in-person quickly. Although as soon as space is available, we would make every effort. That said, it may not be at your school of residence. So we would attempt to transfer you back once space is available. However, that could be at any school throughout the district. Of course, at the conclusion of the school year, during the next school year, you would then be allowed to re-enroll at your school of residence, regardless of whether or not you're in CVVA or the main option. So the next question has to do with screen time in terms of recommended screen time not being more than 60 minutes per day. And so in terms of the screen time, not all of the screen time is necessarily spent looking at the screen for some of the options, but I'll allow Mr. Rashishi, Mr. Hansen-Schmidt, and Ms. Peratour to provide any more information that you want to add.
Yeah, I think we're being very purposeful, and I think our teachers are very aware. I think it's what Mr. Hansen-Schmidt explained with the schedule that you see on the screen right now. With our rotations, that direct instruction, small group instruction, and independent work, we are really focusing on that independent work being non-screen time, and then building in those recesses, those lunches for students to really be away from the screen and working on different, hand, paper, pencil activities and work. And so we really are conscious about making sure that we're doing a careful balance of on-screen time, but being part of a virtual program does involve a certain level of screen time, and we're trying to do a careful balance, and our teachers are very well aware of trying to do that careful balance, and it's why we're including that instructional block where we're rotating students throughout both direct instruction with the teacher and then small groups, and then be totally off the screen, and give eyes a rest, give body a rest, and get outside and get those recesses and those and kind of get the wiggles out and have lunch and not be staring at a screen the whole time.
Thank you, Ms. Rashishi, for that clarification. The next question is, do we provide an online virtual summer school for kindergarten? No, we don't at this point offer that option. A question from Preston again regarding masks. Are masks still required for in-person? Yes, to our knowledge, masks are going to be required in the fall. We don't know if at any point in the school year that will change, but at this point, we do know that masks are going to be required. Will the students do hybrids or in-person only for the main option? So we're anticipating to be fully in-person in the fall, 5 days a week for a full instructional day. Obviously, as we said before, this is considering all of the best information that we have now and the health conditions, but every indication that we've gotten from the county and from the state has been to expect to be in person full-time in the fall, and we are definitely planning for that 100%. Okay, a question from Lydia. Lydia, if I choose a virtual study program for next school year, can I go back to the regular school for the following school year? The answer is yes. For the next school year, you can return and you can return to your home school, of course. So you will not be limited in terms of the following year. Are we considering starting school after Labor Day to allow children to be vaccinated? So currently, Ms. Smith, the school year has been set. That's something that's been negotiated well in advance. And we know that many families have planned their summers and their vacations around the current year. We've also planned our own summer interventions and support programs for our students that are set according to the calendar that's already been set. So right now there is no consideration in terms of changing the start date for the school year. The next question is from Preston Young. Is the 5/28 the drop dead date? There can be lots of changes in terms of the second wave between now and August. Yes, so unfortunately we do need to make decisions now. We understand that things can change. However, we need to be able to make arrangements so that we have a program that is of good quality, and so that we have good teachers that are teaching the program. And so we wanted to make sure that you're aware of that. Will COVID vaccinations be required for students at some point? Carrie Eichmann is asking. At this point, we don't have any indication that COVID vaccinations will be required for students. We don't know if things will change. That being said, we've got no indication that the state or county are considering making a requirement for vaccinations. Obviously, we are not the body that makes those decisions, however, so we can't guarantee that. Okay, so question from Ms. Catalini to the panelists. For in-person learning, are teachers and elementary students still required to wear masks? Yes, is the answer to that. And if schools return to full-time with more students in the class, will there be space in the room for social distancing? Yeah, so the guidelines in terms of social distancing from the state of California, as well as from the Alameda County Public Health Department, do allow for sufficient space for most of our classrooms to be at close to capacity, if not at full capacity. However, there are some classrooms that would require us to have a slightly smaller class size, and we're going to be following all guidance that the health department gives us in terms of room capacity and social distancing for the in-person option. Okay, when will we know what the schedule is offered for in-person instruction for the fall, specifically for kindergarten? And I'll leave that actually to Ms. Rashichi and Mr. Hansen-Schmidt.
So I would say if the question is about kindergarten in person, I think Dr. Ryman said, and I'll just reiterate that, we are planning to have the pre-pandemic in-person program for TK through 5th grade at the elementary level. So all students back at school in person for all of our grade levels. So hopefully that's answering the question about what is the schedule. It will be the regular in-person full day that we've had in the past, TK through 5th grade.
So, thank you, Ms. Rashichi. Next question, for CVVA middle school, will kids still have the music electives? Yes, we are. No, we're not.
No,
Sorry.
Edgenuity does not offer a music elective.
Oh, sorry, I'm
so,
thinking in person. Sorry, thank you.
So it's not possible to do music virtually. So we will not have, because they would have to be in school to actually, you know, practice with a group. So no, just like field trips, it's just not something that's possible.
Awesome, thank you. Sorry, I was thinking of in person. We are offering music for middle school students in person. Thank you, Ms. Parator. Can a student enroll in CVVPE, then later transfer to CVVA? Just for clarification, the CVVPE program is this year's virtual option. Next year, the virtual option will be CVVA Elementary. So students next year will have the option of, in elementary, will have the option of either being in person full-time, which is our main option, or enrolling in CVVA Elementary. And we are asking families to make a decision that they think they can stay with for the full year. So let's see. So I'm getting clarification that even though May 28th is the day that we want the interest survey back, some clarification from Ms. Amati, that if we get information later, we will still attempt to make adjustments. So thank you for that clarification, Ms. Amati, all the way up till the end of the school year. This is an interest survey. Thank you for that clarification. So a question from a teacher at Canyon. Is whether or not the middle school will be a separate entity from Canyon Middle School. Yes, so the program structure for the secondary options specifically for middle school is different from this year, whereas this year the virtual option was housed at the middle school campuses. This year, this coming year, the option will be housed at the at Castro Valley Virtual Academy. And I'm sorry, Ms. Parator, can I ask you to move forward with the next couple of questions? Okay, thank you.
Why is summer school not offering virtual classes? Actually, we are offering virtual classes for high school because some of the high schoolers for credit recovery are able to handle doing virtual instruction in the summer. But we felt as a district pretty strongly that for all of our younger kids from kindergarten through 8th grade, that they really needed, actually through 9th grade, they really needed in-person instruction because the social aspect of school was missing for them. And so that is why we are having in-person instruction, but we are not mixing cohorts. Even at the secondary level, even at the middle school level, summer school is only one class. They will come and be with 15 students and then they will leave. So there is no going to be mixing of anybody at summer school. And of course, summer school is not compulsory education, so it's optional. Is in-person class size for 5-6 still 32? Will the classroom have enough spacing for social distancing? And actually, I did measure it out when I was an elementary principal, and there was enough for 3-foot distancing, which is where we are right now, is the 3-foot distancing. But I can let Dr. Ryman, did you want to take back?
Yeah, I would just say we're following whatever the guidance is in terms of the most effective safety protocols. We're going to follow that guidance. And so if 32 students meet those requirements, then there could be 32 students. If the room does not have size, then we would not put 32 students in the room. But we're following all of the regulations and safety guidance. So just to move forward, we have 27 questions, but I'm afraid probably not enough time to get to all of the answers. So I will just make some choices here in terms of some of these questions that are redundant. We are going to end at 7 p.m. But if you have questions at a later point, we will be around. And if there's something that's very specific, feel free to reach out to us as well. So next question is, for the middle school next year, can a student start at Creekside Middle School and later transfer to the virtual option? And so I don't believe that we're going to be allowing transferring from the in-person to the virtual option. As I was saying before, we don't have enough staffing to create seats in both programs. And so unfortunately, we are asking you to make a decision when you enroll at the beginning of the year.
Can I answer the next question?
Yes.
Please. The elective rotation will not be offered at CVVA Middle School. However, there are electives through Edgenuity. So there will be middle school electives offered. It's just not in that rotational basis like the wheel is right now.
Another question about remote learning option for summer school 2021. Ms. Parator, could you speak to the secondary options for summer school?
Yes, there are many options for summer school for secondary. We actually have a 6th through 9th grade program, which is language arts and math in person in small cohorts. We have Edgenuity Summer School for credit recovery and credit repair. We have 10th through 12th grade, many different classes are being offered, both in person and virtually through Edgenuity. I don't know, did I answer that question? I'm sorry. Yes.
So the short answer is that there are a variety of options, some virtual, some in person. At the elementary level, the summer school options are really for a select group of students. It's not, and you will be contacted by your school regarding those options. The program is primarily, well, it's 100% in person. I don't know if there's any virtual options related to elementary, not to my knowledge, and see Ms. Rashish is indicating no as well. For middle school next year, can a student start at Creekside, transfer to CVVA? I think we spoke to that. Will the elective rotation be offered to CVVA middle school students? For Mr. Wong.
There will be electives through CVVA. They have a standardized set of electives. They are not the same as the electives that are offered at Canyon and Creekside, however.
Okay, thank you. Is there an option for lower school grades to be able to Zoom into an actual classroom? No, so we are not offering the option of students who are in the main option being remote. We are asking families to choose either CVVA or full in person. will classes mix grades like this year? It's a question I'm assuming for elementary. Ms. Rashishi, Mr. Hansen-Schmidt.
So we mix grades.
Yes.
So we have been keeping our stable student cohorts for this 2020, this current school year. And as you said, Dr. Ryman, earlier, we will follow the guidelines that come from the state and the county health department. So we don't know what they're going to put in place yet and give us guidance around around stable student cohorts. So the question is, it's really a question mark that we would like to answer, but we don't have a definitive answer quite yet.
I think the question may be talking about combo classes too, which are a possibility depending on enrollment.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you both.
Thank you, Mr. Hansen-Smith.
Next question is, are all kids automatically enrolled for the in-person option for next school year? So the main option is full in-person instruction. And unless a family decides that they want to opt in to the CVVA program and let us know that, yes, all students will be enrolled in the main option. Okay, moving forward. Okay, where can we get information about summer school for elementary students? The information regarding summer school actually is being pushed out to those students. Unfortunately, we don't offer a summer school program that's open to all students. We're in fact one of the few districts that regularly offers an elementary summer school program at all, which we are very proud of. But that said, there are other summer enrichment programs that you can find throughout the community. And hopefully there will be options available locally in Castro Valley.
And Dr. Ryman, just so folks know, we did really expand our summer schools this year at elementary level. We normally have only had one summer school, and this year we really have expanded to 3 summer school sites to serve as many students as we possibly could. So it's important for our community to know that. But like you said, we don't have the option of serving every kid in summer school, but teachers did make some really good effort to look at all of our data and make good decisions about which students were our students most in need to fill those 3 different schools at the elementary level.
Awesome, thank you, Ms. Rashishi. Okay, and it looks like that brings us to the end of the questions we have in chat. But before we conclude, I'd like to invite back in Superintendent Parveen Ahmadi. And if we could, hold on, we just got 2 more questions. Are ESL summer school classes available for kindergarten? And Mrs. Parator?
I am not sure. I am not running the elementary summer school program.
Oh, okay. Do we know? So I don't.
So the answer is no. For kindergarten specifically, the answer is no.
The answer is no. Okay, we do offer an ESL program for some students, I know at the secondary level. Can we request to be in summer school if we have an IEP? I would say any requests having to do with students with disabilities, my recommendation is always to talk to your case manager and make those appropriate requests using that process. And before we conclude, I do want to invite back in Mrs. Ahmadi.
I'm here. Yeah. Let me see if I can unmute. I do want to thank you. You know, our team has worked really, really hard to make this the best possibility for the virtual program. But I just want to reiterate a few very important things. Number one, there are lots of conversations in Sacramento that we will not have the end results of until basically June 15th. So everything we're sharing with you tonight is based on what we already know. But the most important decisions about what virtual is going to look like in the next year is not until then. And that's for this reason. At this point, legislators are considering who actually should be allowed to be in virtual. Right now, we would love to have that option for whoever wants to, but there is a possibility that legislators might say only if you have health conditions and this is what you need to do to be offered a virtual program. So I just really want to be clear about that. We're asking you for your interest just to start setting up things, but the final decision is going to have to be made by middle of June. Once we find out, there is a possibility that they limit how many or if all kids can choose virtual or not. At this point, we're hoping that they will, and we do have a virtual academy that we can offer you. So I wanted to just make sure we know that, and we are behind the scene. All of us are working hard to push, in that direction. And the other thing I wanted to really make clear, there is no hybrid next year, no hybrid. The default is everyone is back to school full-time, full in person, like you were the years before COVID. So when questions come up about what the hours look like, it's just like before. So you'll get all that information. So there is no hybrid. None of this half time in and out, which we had this year, which has been really difficult on all of you, on our teachers, our staff, and our students and families. And I really like the language that Ms. Rishichi used, that pre-pandemic, pre-pandemic school. As far as spacing, as Dr. Ryman and the rest of the team here mentioned, we have enough room, but right now it's 3 feet. Even that distance for 3 feet may go away based on guidelines from the state. So what we are hearing is there will be a lot of recommendations, but not a whole lot of requirements like this year because of the percentage of people being vaccinated. So the more we can get kids and families and students vaccinated, the better for everybody. I think those were, and there was a question about like when we are in person, are we, are there going to be restrictions? Yes, there will be some restrictions around visitors and things like that, even when we're back. So some of these things will still be in place. And again, as Dr. Ryman noted, all students are technically enrolled in the regular school in person full day, unless they choose to go to virtual, that's why we are asking for an interest to kind of see where we're going. So that's all I wanted to mention, but we'll be sending information out. I know school ends next week, but I'm hoping that families continue to open their emails that we send out, as there will be more information around the guidelines, the recommendations, the state, and all of that will be clear by June 15th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Almadi. Thank you, Ms. Rishichi, Ms. Parator, Mr. Hansen-Schmidt, and Ms. Cortez. Also, Marcy and Jane, thank you for your interpretation services. I see one last question popped in regarding what our protocols will be next year. We're going to follow whatever the guidance is from the health department. So we don't know for sure, but whatever those requirements are, we will follow those very closely, or well, not closely exactly. So I do want to close just by thanking all of you for taking time tonight, and we hope you have a great evening. Again, please keep a lookout for the interest survey, and please return the survey to us by May 28th. Although, as Ms. Almadi said, you will have an opportunity to select your school at a later point prior to June 15th, we anticipate. All right, thank you all and have a good evening.